welcome.
If this herd can survive tonight, what is preserved is not just a few rows of trees or a patch of farmland. It is an entire year of labor, days under the sun and wind, hours of constant care, all of which can vanish overnight if wild boars sweep through. In many rural areas across the United States, this scenario is no longer unfamiliar. It repeats itself again and again, silently yet devastatingly, as dozens of hectares of land are torn apart before the sun even rises. With wild boars, everything happens faster than human response capacity. They leave little time for thinking or preparation. Once a target is chosen, they move according to their own plan, quietly and with precision. Statistics show that even a group of 15 to 20 individuals is enough to destroy more than 1 hectare of crops within a few nighttime hours. And what is even more concerning than their destructive power is the way they learn. If not addressed early, the damage will quickly spiral out of control. Recovery costs are always far higher than initial prevention costs. And the longer it continues, the more cautious the herd becomes. Sound devices and simple deterrents may work at first, but over time, they gradually lose effectiveness. Wild boars learn very quickly. They adapt, remember, and adjust their behavior after only a few encounters. Instead of betting everything on a large-scale solution from the beginning, the first strategic step is surprisingly simple: set up a small trap for observation. This is not the stage for catching as many as possible, but for understanding the herd's behavior. Which one leads? Which one is the most alert? How long does it take for the entire group to enter the baited area? These seemingly minor details ultimately determine the outcome. Just one small mistake can cause the opportunity to disappear completely. If the herd detects any unusual sign, they may not return for days, even weeks. In wildlife control, understanding behavior is always more important than acting hastily. Patience in the early stage is an investment in long-term effectiveness. Once the herd's movement patterns and reactions become clear, the strategy begins to shift. The setup cannot remain unchanged for too long, as that would make the trap detectable. The trap height is adjusted, and the activation timing is recalculated with greater precision. When the herd's reaction time is reduced to a minimum, the chance of escape becomes almost non-existent. A drop trap does not need to be complex. What matters is timing. When triggered at the right moment, the entire herd has almost no time to scatter. Their herd instinct, the very trait that helps them survive, becomes their weakness. They move together, react together, and when captured, they are captured all at once. As a result, the damage is stopped at the source before it can spread. After successful captures, the trapping system continues to be refined. The mechanism becomes smoother, the structure stronger, yet without unnecessary complexity. Costs may increase, but every adjustment is based on real data collected in the field. Bait placement is optimized. Activation timing is fine-tuned. The goal is not the biggest trap, but the most suitable one for the specific conditions of each area. Ultimately, effectiveness does not come from scale, but from understanding. Understanding how the herd moves. Understanding how they react. And most importantly, understanding when to act. When these elements come together, control is gradually regained. If you have ever faced a similar situation, you will understand that this is not just a battle against an animal. It is a battle of patience, observation, and making the right decision at the right time. Block the right path, act at the critical moment, and above all, always comply with local regulations and work with experienced professionals to ensure safety for both people and the surrounding environment.
Stuff in a mess, isn't it?
For many years working alongside my father in wild boar control, I came to understand one key principle. When they begin appearing on roads, it is no longer just a farm issue. In places like Texas, herds follow familiar routes, so the risk extends beyond crops to traffic as well. A boar weighing hundreds of kilos rushing out at night can cause a serious accident, making control something that must be handled in a structured way. The next morning, I went with my father to meet farmers and the control team. A map was quickly laid out, marking areas of torn soil, repeated trails, and crossing points where herds frequently passed. No one said much, because everyone understood these signs were critical data. They revealed not only location, but also movement patterns that in wide regions like Texas. Some teams use helicopters to observe from above. From that view, movement paths become clearer, disturbed soil lines and trails cutting across fields. The helicopter is not used for capture, but it helps determine exactly where traps should be placed, avoiding mistakes in setup. The operation was divided into two directions. I went with my father to place blocking traps along narrow paths, routes the herd must take to reach residential areas. Meanwhile, another team set up a large corral trap at a central point. If blocking traps guide movement, the corral is where the circle closes, aiming to control the entire herd at once.
Has its own battery pack. The
Bait was placed in layers from the outside inward, creating a natural approach. On the first night, the boar stayed outside and observed. On the second night, a few stepped in. Over the following nights, the whole herd gradually became familiar with the area. There was no rush, because acting at the wrong moment could cause them not to return. Once the herd was moving comfortably inside, the most critical moment began. The gate dropped in an instant, and the space inside immediately turned chaotic. Large bodies pressed together, repeatedly hitting the steel frame in search of a way out. The heavy, continuous sound created a clear sense of pressure, even for those watching from outside, that In that moment, my father did not focus on the chaos. He focused on structure. He checked load points and joints to make sure everything held steady. If any part failed, all previous planning would become meaningless. This was not the moment to act, but to verify the plan. But the trap held firm. No animal escaped, and no pressure spread outward. At the same time, the outer traps blocked any individuals that tried to break away. The entire team stayed in position, following the plan exactly. That coordination allowed the whole system to function as a closed loop.
You did it. They not as small as... Ooh. Yep. Come on. In the bus. Yep. Get in the bus. Help. Let's go ahead and shut it.
That a week later, the results became clear. No more herds crossing roads anymore, and no new tracks near residential areas. Cameras showed growing calm, and people began sleeping better. Roads that once felt dangerous became safer. Not because the problem disappeared, but because it was properly controlled at IN.
Yeah. Good job. There we go. Yep.
Texas, and many other states, wild boars cause billions of dollars in damage every year. They do not just eat, they destroy soil, roots, and irrigation systems within hours. That is why modern traps are not meant to eliminate them completely, but to control behavior and reduce conflict. If you found this useful, leave a comment and don't forget to follow for more real-world situations.
Don't come to me. Go.
It's going.
In just one night, a field in central Texas was turned into a churned-up wasteland, rows of crops overturned as if a massive plow had passed through in the darkness. The estimated damage exceeded $60,000, and by sunrise, all that remained were dense tracks and completely destroyed patches of soil. With no other option, the farmer was forced to shift from defense to proactive control. But the question still lingered: could a single solution stop the entire herd, or would everything repeat the next night? The data from cameras and ground traces quickly revealed one thing: the herd was not moving randomly. They returned to the exact same route, the exact same point. An open area right at the edge of the field was selected as the trap location. A circular steel system was assembled with a diameter of nearly 10 meters, creating a space large enough for the entire herd to enter without feeling pressured. No gaps, no suspicious elements. Everything was designed to resemble a naturally safe zone. Steel panels were secured with deep-driven posts, strong enough to withstand the impact of fully grown boars. At the center of the trap, dozens of kilograms of corn were spread out daily. But the key factor was not the amount of bait, it was timing. For the first 4 nights, the gate remained fully open. The boars began to return, first as cautious scouts, then gradually the entire herd entered and fed without hesitation. Cameras captured every step, from initial hesitation to complete comfort moving inside the trap area. That was the critical moment, when suspicion disappeared. On the 5th night, everything changed. Once the entire herd had moved deep inside, the operator monitored remotely via phone. With a single signal sent, the steel gate dropped instantly. No loud noise, no prolonged chaos, just a brief moment, and the entire herd was contained inside. Every escape route vanished, and their only chance was gone in an instant. The result exceeded expectations. 37 wild boars captured in a single operation. The total estimated weight surpassed 3,000 pounds. But the real value was not in the numbers. It was in completely breaking the herd's return cycle. If only individual animals were removed, the rest would quickly adapt and become harder to approach. But when the entire herd is controlled at once, the cycle of destruction is effectively stopped. However, the damage caused by wild boars goes far beyond torn-up soil. They also carry invisible risks, from infectious diseases that can spread to livestock, to disruptions across the entire farming ecosystem.
Oh my God!
When they penetrate deep into livestock areas, they can become carriers of biological threats that farmers cannot manage through conventional means. More dangerously, when cornered, large adult boars can react with extreme aggression. Weighing hundreds of kilograms and capable of powerful impacts, they pose a threat not only to crops but to human safety. That is why control must be carried out remotely, using automated systems, rather than direct confrontation. When the operation ended, the field gradually returned to silence. Standing on the land that had just been reclaimed, the farmer understood this was more than a single success, it was a shift in approach. No more reactive responses, no more chasing losses. Instead, strategic control, calculated execution, and enough force to stop the problem at its source. And in that silence, one thing became clear. In nature, the most dangerous threat is not what appears suddenly, but what returns every night, precise, repetitive, and increasingly difficult to stop, until humans decide to change how they confront it. A silent battle is spreading across the vast fields of Texas, where the boundary between farmland and the wild is gradually fading. Wild boar herds appear unpredictably, but once they enter, they leave unmistakable traces: soil torn apart, crops uprooted, and entire areas destroyed in just a single night. What worries farmers is not only their destructive power, but how quickly they learn and adapt. Traditional control methods are becoming ineffective, forcing farmers to turn to a decisive solution: large-scale traps designed to target entire sounders rather than individual animals. If you're interested in how they protect farms from this growing threat, subscribe to follow whether this solution truly works. The pressure begins with increasingly severe and hard-to-control damage. No longer isolated incidents, wild boar attacks now follow repeated patterns. They return to the same locations, move along familiar paths, and target the most accessible areas. Irrigation systems are destroyed, farmland is disrupted, and recovery costs rise with every season. What was once considered a rare rural issue has now become a standard part of farm management across the state. Beyond physical damage, wild boars also bring serious biological risks. As they move across different areas, they unknowingly become carriers that spread disease. Viruses and bacteria can persist in the environment, attaching to water sources, soil, or feed. This puts livestock operations at risk of infection without clear warning signs. Once an outbreak occurs, the consequences can spread far beyond a single location, affecting entire production systems. The danger escalates when wild boars feel threatened. Mature individuals, especially during breeding season, can react quickly and unpredictably. This makes direct contact extremely risky, not only for farmers but also for control teams. In addition, their presence near roads increases the risk of collisions, leading to property damage and potential injuries. Controlling wild boars is no longer optional. It has become a necessity. In response, large-scale trapping systems are being deployed as a central solution. Unlike traditional small traps, this design focuses on capturing entire herds in a single operation. The structure is typically circular or polygonal, built with strong steel mesh or reinforced metal panels.
Correct position. All right, sir.
Support posts are driven deep into the ground to ensure stability against the force of multiple animals. The trapdoor is wide enough to allow the entire herd to enter without hesitation. The key difference lies in how the system is operated. Instead of triggering the trap when only a few animals appear, cameras are used to monitor the entire herd. Bait is placed at the center and maintained over several days to create a sense of safety. Only when the entire herd is inside and no individuals remain outside on alert does the operator activate the door remotely. This waiting for the right moment significantly increases the success rate. When the door drops, the entire space instantly becomes enclosed. With no escape route, the herd is contained without the need for chasing or causing panic. The result is not only a large number of animals controlled in a single event, but also a reduced chance for remaining boars to learn and avoid traps in the future. This marks a shift from passive control to a proactive approach, one that more effectively protects crops, maintains balance, and ensures the long-term stability of farms.
Yep. Easy, come on now. Yep. Let's drop that gate. There you go. Oh, get on the bus. There you go. Yep. There you go.
Not everyone has ever seen an entire herd of wild boars trapped inside a single enclosure. I've witnessed it a few times, but never on that kind of scale. That night, when the system tightened, the tension filled the air, anchor lines humming, the net shaking hard. Inside, the herd panicked, trampling over each other and searching for a way out. And it all started from a patch of ground that had been torn apart. The first time I visited Uncle James's farm, things had already gone far beyond control. The grass field was ripped into large patches, the soil turned over heavily, with signs scattered across the entire area. You didn't even need to see the boars. Just looking at the ground told the whole story. A large herd had passed through during the night, and not just once. Neighbors nearby confirmed they kept coming back for weeks, despite every attempt to drive them away. Lights stayed on all night, guards rotated shifts, even multiple deterrent methods were used, but nothing worked. What stood out wasn't just the level of destruction, but how quickly the herd adapted. They returned on schedule, followed the same paths, and grew more confident each time. Once it had gone on that long, the solution couldn't be reactive anymore. It had to shift into a controlled, systematic approach. The next morning, we began setting up the trap early. The netting was carried into the forest, teams worked in sections, each anchor point secured tightly to tree trunks. The work seemed simple, but it demanded precision, because even a small misalignment could render the entire system useless. Once everything was in place, it became completely still. There was nothing left to do but wait for the right moment. The herd wasn't forced into the trap. They followed their own habits, guided by bait and familiarity. The lead boar appeared first, paused to observe, then stepped inside. The rest followed behind, one by one, without the slightest suspicion. Once they started feeding, their alertness gradually dropped. The longer they stayed, the deeper they moved into the center, never realizing the enclosure had already closed around them. The circular trap design worked exactly as intended. There were no blind spots to escape through, no weak points to break. When they sensed something wrong, their only instinct was to run. But in a closed circular space, running only drained their energy faster. They kept circling, crashing into the net, sending strong vibrations through it, yet the entire structure held firm. Every charge only tightened the net further, never weakening it. There were no gaps, no break points. No matter how they struggled, rammed, or tried to break free, it all led to the same outcome: exhaustion. That was when I understood the core principle of this system. Once the entire herd steps into the circle, the chance of escape is almost gone. Not because the trap is complex, but because it uses the herd's own behavior against them. The entire process was monitored through screens. It wasn't fear, it was intense focus. As notifications began appearing continuously from different points, we knew the system was working exactly as planned. Not just one trap, but multiple locations were reporting results. The feeling in that moment was a mix of tension and relief, as the long chain of damage was finally brought to a stop. What came next followed a set procedure. Each animal was controlled and transported, the numbers so large we had to rethink the logistics. But what mattered more was the outcome. The farm was no longer being destroyed every night, and the people living there could finally sleep peacefully again. On the drive back, in the quiet of the vehicle, I realized that success didn't come from a single moment, but from a process of observation and patience. Control doesn't come from the size of the trap, but from the precision of timing and execution. If you've ever faced a situation like this, share your experience. And if you found this useful, don't forget to follow for more real-world strategies like this.
Not!
No decision was made immediately. For nearly 3 weeks, the farm owner simply observed in silence and endured. Night after night, as darkness fell, the wild boars returned. No loud noises, no warning signs. They moved in like shadows, then disappeared, leaving behind fields torn apart and churned into chaos. At first, there were only a few scattered footprints around the edge of the forest. But in a short time, the signs became denser. Rows of crops were uprooted, patches of soil ripped open, and after just a few nights, an entire section of the farm was nearly wiped out. This was no longer random intrusion. It had become a clearly established movement corridor. As the damage began to exceed what could be tolerated, a control plan had to be put into action. But instead of rushing in, everything was done in reverse, stepping back and observing. Wild boars only return when they feel safe, and that very sense of safety would become their weakness. In the first few days, no traps were set. There was only bait. Corn, grain, molasses, and scent attractants were spread evenly each night at the same location. The goal was not to capture them immediately, but to create a habit. As the food source became familiar, the boars began returning more frequently. Then a large trapping system was set up, with bait laid from the outside inward, forming a natural path. There was no force, No sign of anything unusual. Everything was kept exactly as it had been on previous nights, with only one difference: the trigger mechanism was ready. Near midnight, the first movements appeared. One by one, they stepped in, slowly, without suspicion. When the last one entered the central area, the signal was triggered. The gate slammed shut with a sharp, dry sound. In an instant, the entire herd was contained inside. The sound of metal rang out repeatedly. Bodies slammed against the steel frame, dust rising into the air. The chaos lasted for several minutes, then gradually subsided. The first night ended with a clear result. Part of the herd had been controlled. But it did not stop there. In the following nights, other groups continued to appear. A larger herd, including young ones, entered the area without hesitation. This showed that the system was working as intended, not just attracting a single group, but multiple herds sharing the same movement corridor. The number of traps was increased. Each night, a few more individuals were captured. There were no longer massive catches like at the beginning, but it was enough to maintain pressure. Then, on a moonlit night, the largest herd yet appeared. They followed the familiar path, stepping forward without the slightest caution. When the last one crossed the boundary, the mechanism was triggered. The gate slammed down, a metallic crash piercing the stillness. Inside, chaos erupted, then quickly faded as every escape route was sealed. Under the dim moonlight, the entire herd was subdued. It was not a sense of victory, but of relief. After weeks of observation and preparation, the damage had finally been brought under control. The next morning, the work shifted to the handling phase. No longer observation or waiting, but transport.
Golly.
A guided passage was set up, maintaining a safe distance and minimizing stress so the boars could be moved in a controlled direction. The adults, the ones responsible for the most damage, were prioritized first. When everything was over, the farm gradually returned to its quiet state. No more dense footprints, no more patches of land destroyed overnight. But the most important thing was not the number that had been controlled, but how it was done. Not rushed, not random, but observing long enough to act at the right moment. In controlling wild boars, patience is sometimes the deciding factor. Not to wait, but to ensure that when action is taken, it is effective from the very first time.
The video has really changed how we
Bad time.
A call came in early in the morning, carrying exhaustion and a sense of helplessness. The landowner said the situation had spiraled out of control. The wild boars had been returning night after night, and each time they left, the field were left in worse condition. When the control team arrived, what stood out most was not just the extent of the damage, but the overwhelming sense of frustration. There was no time to hesitate. The first step was to survey the entire area, reading every trace to understand how the herd was moving.
Gotta protect it. Probably 100 by 100 where these hogs have been in. And they hadn't been in this field.
a lot of this is really fresh rooting task, and if say the grass.
The land was quickly divided into 3 key points. These were the main routes the boars frequently used. There was no room for chance. If only one direction was controlled, the rest of the herd would become alert. And once that happened, every plan that followed would become far more difficult. So the strategy was not to wait for a single trap to work, but to see which direction would be triggered first. Close to midnight, the first signal appeared. A small group moved into the outer trap zone. They behaved naturally, with little caution, perhaps because the area had already been heavily trampled before. When the first mechanism was triggered, the sharp sound of metal shattered the silence. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The animals inside reacted strongly, but the locking system held firm. The control team quickly moved in and handled the situation during the night. It was an opening step, but not the most critical one. Less than 30 minutes later. Movement was detected at the second point. This time, the group was larger and more cautious. A few individuals stepped in, then paused, turning back as if ready to retreat. If the entire group had withdrawn into the forest, the opportunity would have been lost. In that tense moment, a large individual moved forward. Calm, unhurried, it stepped into the center, and the others gradually followed. When the mechanism was triggered, the entire steel frame shook violently. The sound carried farther, signaling a much stronger reaction than before. The control team had to act quickly before the disturbance spread. Two points had been secured, but one area remained silent. That was the most concerning part. The third point lay deeper inside, near a primary movement route. After the first 2 traps were triggered, there was no signal from the zone. The prolonged silence was more unsettling than the earlier metallic noise. The herd might have scattered, or perhaps most of them were waiting further. A decision was made. hold position, and do not intervene.
Just back up.
Near dawn, just as everything seemed to be over, the final signal appeared. A large group was moving into the third area. They did not rush in, but circled cautiously, constantly observing. A manual trigger was too risky. If it failed, the entire herd would disappear and might never return. Time seemed to slow. As the first light emerged, the automatic system activated. The gate closed smoothly, firm enough to contain the entire group, yet gentle enough to avoid panic. The control team did not approach immediately. Only after full daylight did they return to inspect. Most of the herd had been secured within the third zone. Only then did the true scale of the problem become clear. This was not a race of numbers. It was a process of behavioral adjustment. Observation, patience, and understanding herd psychology were the decisive factors.
Yeah, like you just be doing all that.
In another area, a residential security system recorded movement in the middle of the night. There was no loud noise, only a subtle vibration from the alert system. Camera footage showed a group of wild boars moving in formation, advancing in an orderly line. This was not random behavior. It was evidence of a well-established threat. The herd stopped at the boundary between the natural zone and the residential area. But this time, the timing was precise. The gate closed quietly. The entire group was contained within the control zone, completely separated from the residential area. No noise, no panic, and no one in the neighborhood realized what had taken place that night.
We got a bigger.
Ag turn in here. Do one.
Recently, in many areas of Texas, the wild boar population has increased rapidly, leading to more intense competition and conflicts with other wildlife.
On the way back.
They frequently compete for food, engage in direct confrontations, and raise the risk of disease outbreaks, especially African swine fever. As the population grows beyond control, the herds begin expanding their range, moving closer to livestock farms and residential areas. Their dense presence not only causes serious damage to agriculture, but also increases the risk of disease transmission to domestic animals and even impacts humans. These pressures quickly accumulate, forcing authorities to implement large-scale control measures to restore balance. Because of the growing disease risk and expanding intrusion range, systematic surveys are carried out using infrared cameras and tracking devices to identify where the herds hide and their habitual travel routes. Based on the collected data, control teams quickly mark key points frequently used by the herd to install large circular trapping systems. Every step is carefully calculated, as even a small mistake could cause the entire herd to disappear and become more cautious. Heavy T-posts are driven deep into the ground, forming a wide circular enclosure exactly at the pre-identified location. Thick steel mesh panels are stretched and connected into a closed structure, with every joint tightly secured to ensure maximum stability. The sound of metal echoes across the quiet fields. From the outside, it looks like a simple fence, but in reality, it is a system designed to hold the entire herd at the critical moment.
This is the next part. You see, I got to put the outer frame of that.
Once the structure is complete, the preparation enters its final stage. Infrared cameras are installed around the area, mounted on trees or elevated poles to monitor the entire trap zone. Human traces are minimized as much as possible. Then bait is placed. Fermented corn prepared earlier is used to create a strong scent, arranged in a trail leading from outside into the center of the trap. The largest portion is placed at the center, acting as the main attractant that gradually draws the herd deeper inside without noticing the boundaries. When everything is ready, the area returns to silence. Only the faint scent of food lingers in the air. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, sensitive noses begin to pick up the smell. As night falls, the first movement signals appear on the monitoring screen. The wild boar herd has returned. The lead boar steps forward, pausing to observe and smell the surroundings. Behind it, the rest of the herd follows, moving in according to their established pattern. Although naturally cautious, the scent of food dulls their awareness. Guided by the leader, one by one they move deeper inside. There is no suspicion, no hesitation. When the entire herd is fully inside the trap area, the decisive moment arrives. Immediately, the gate system is triggered remotely. A sudden metallic crash shatters the silence of the field. The entire herd falls into panic, charging in all directions and crashing into the steel fence. The ground is torn apart under their weight and repeated impacts. Larger individuals attempt to break the structure, while smaller ones try to squeeze through, but all efforts fail. There are no gaps, no escape. The chaos continues until exhaustion sets in. As the sun rises, the control team returns to the trap site. By then, the herd is no longer struggling violently as during the night. Many are exhausted, breathing heavily after hours of attempting to escape. Some remain standing, alert and reacting to every movement. But seeing the entire herd contained at once, the farmers can finally breathe a sigh of relief. It is the moment they realize the plan has truly worked.